It's pool party time. Could we see Terry Bussey commit this weekend?
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in the Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Folks, it is pool party time. Big weekend coming up. A lot to look forward to. Nothing more fun than talking about recruiting. Nothing more fun than talking about some potential commitments and players that are going to be on campus. So I wrote down a list of a handful of names that are going to be on campus this weekend. And let's get into it. Let's talk about some of these guys. Could we see somebody commit? Could we see this class take a step in the right direction? It's going to be a good weekend, folks, and let's talk about it. Let's get right on into it. So if I had to pick a player that I think we could see commit to the Aggies this weekend, I'm going to go Terry Bussey, simply based on the fact that, he's crystal ball to Texas A&M. We know that. Everybody thinks he's going to Texas A&M. He's going to be at the pool party. And he recently was quoted saying, it's almost time, I'm committing soon. I know where I'm going. I'm committing. We're doing it. We're locking this thing down. So all of those things stacked up, folks, I really think I'm very confident the Aggies are going to land Terry Bussey, are going to land him. The question is it this weekend? And that's what's interesting. I think that these big recruiting weekends, there's a few things we're going to talk about before I talk about just some players that are going to be in attendance that I'd like to see the Aggies land. But I think the way I look at recruiting weekends like this is a lot of schools are having similar events, and these players are choosing to be with you. And I think that speaks a lot to, like, if you're in a race, like we're talking about Ryan Wingo, a guy who I don't feel great about the Aggies landing, but he's at the pool party. It's like, he's not there for food. He's there because he has interest in Texas A&M. Now, I might go for food. That sounds good to me, but that's beside the point. The point is, I think that what I'm getting at is it means a lot if these players choose to attend this event, because I think this event to me says, we have a lot of interest in playing at Texas A&M. I don't think you waste your time. You don't waste your time and go here if you're not interested. Another guy, Kobe Black's going to be in attendance, a guy that the Longhorns are feel pretty good about, and he's going to be at the pool party. So it's like these things, and it was funny. I saw a Longhorn fan that was saying something like, be good with our boy Kobe Black, feed him some good food, let him swim. And then, and send it back our way and kind of poking some fun at Aggie fans. And folks, I don't think it's as simple as that. I don't think you go for, like I said, I joked about it, but I don't think you go for food and to swim. I think if you are going to the pool party, you are going to the pool party for a reason. And so, Kobe Black, I don't obviously feel great about it. I still kind of think he's leaning to the Longhorns right now, but he is here for a reason. So talking back to Terry Bussey, I think he's going to be the guy that's next. I think coaching staffs, you kind of look at this. I think coaching staffs have their, we talked about the whole silent commitment. Is Terry Bussey a guy that's silent committed? I don't know. But players do that a lot more than I think is known to the public. And one thing that I'm kind of thinking about is, like, could Coach Fisher and all the recruiting staff kind of be like, hey, Terry, we want you to commit. We want you to commit at the pool party, because sometimes that spreads like a wildfire, folks. If you get one guy, you get Terry Bussey, who's, of course, the 15th overall player in 24/7 Sports composite rankings. You get a player like that to commit. Do someone else follow? Do you see Elijah Barnes follow? Does Colin Simmons maybe jump on the train? Like, you can see it kind of, I think it's like a snowball effect. I think you see these players choose to commit over a weekend like this. And you got to look at it. This is like a big bonding weekend. This is how a lot of these players during the recruiting process, a lot of these players go to different stops and like, oh, okay, Kobe Black might have ran into Ryan Wingo at one point, or run into Terry Bussey at one point. It's like, that is kind of how this works. When you're on recruiting trips, you get to know these players. And obviously, one thing we've talked about, which is a reason I'm not a fan of the whole transfer portal world, is I think bonding is a big part of football. I think being brothers with your teammates, being one and the same. I think it says a lot. So a event like this, the pool party, somebody that's going to commit this weekend, let's say it's Terry Bussey, and then let's say somebody else commits. This is a weekend they're out here having fun, eating food, swimming, chopping it up, building a relationship. That leads to victories on the field. I think that these events are all around good. It's good for recruiting. It's good for the players that you land to commit, the players that you land to get to know one another. And that's part of recruiting. Like I said, these players overlap, I think, more than a lot of people anticipate. So it's like, guys, let's say Cubby Black does end up going to Texas, and then Terry Bussey ends up going to A&M, right? And then those two guys are going at it one-on-one. Obviously, I don't think they're going to be going against each other on the field, but then you're buddies at events like these, and now you're competitors on the field. I think it's interesting how all that works. But folks, this is a big recruiting weekend. I think I've heard floating around that Texas A&M could land a couple commits this weekend. The one that I do feel good about is just, and like I said, I laid out all my facts, folks. Is Terry Bussey going to commit? I don't know. I don't know it for a fact. What I do know is just all the signs point to that happening. And that's a big deal. We already talked about this class sits at 11 in the nation at the time of this recording. You land a guy like Terry Bussey, I think that you're going to see a big old boost in that. I think you could hop to 6, 7, 8. I don't know how those numbers work. I'll have to check it out, but you'll definitely see this class take a mondo jump if you were to land Terry Bussey. And it's a good thing, folks. You haven't had a commit in a little while. I'm not going to say a little while. It feels like when Texas A&M went on that run, I think the last commit was Ernest Campbell. And it feels like that was 17 years ago. In all reality, I think that was like the Friday before SEC Media Days. So, folks, that was like a week and a half ago. But that big run Texas A&M went on, it felt like there was a commit every day. So, I think that we need to – I think you got to lock somebody down this weekend. And I think if it's Terry Bussey, God, his name's hard to say because it's – oh, gosh. But I think if you lock him down, it's a big deal. A highly recruited, highly ranked guy. A lot of big-time programs want him. The only thing that kind of scares me – one thing, when you see beat writers from other schools kind of still writing about a player, I don't love that. So, like, I saw an article, it was from a Texas publication, and it was like from 3 or 4 days ago, still writing about Terry, and it's like, I don't love that. And I know all signs point to him playing his football in College Station, but you just don't love to see these beat writers from other schools still writing about players. But hey, all the Auburn fans are still writing about Cam. All the Auburn sites are still writing about Cam Coleman. I love that. I love making fun of Auburn fans about Cam Coleman. But this, folks, like I said, this is a big time weekend for the Aggies. I think you could go from the 11th class in the country to top 5. I think just like that at the end of this weekend. So running through some of these names, you got Dahan Petway, cornerback, 61st player in the class. And there's a million names. I just wrote down a handful. I thought we'd give a quick hit talk about. Cubby Black, of course, the 26th player in the class, cornerback. Ryan Wingo, the number 7 player in the class, wide receiver, which, like I said, I don't feel great about landing Wingo, but goodness gracious, think if you landed Wingo and your receiver class was Wingo, Draylon Miller, and Cam Coleman. Holy moly, that would be in 2025, the Aggies would have the best wide receiver core in college football. And I don't think there's any debate in that. Then, of course, Terry's going to be there. Aiden Breland's going to be there. Defensive lineman, the 34th player in the class, in 24/7 Sports. I always want to preface that. That's what I use for pretty much everything. Elijah Barnes, linebacker, the 102nd player in the class, is going to be there. And then Colin Simmons, the 27th player, edge rusher, 27th player in the composite rankings. Now, here's the deal, folks. One thing I want to preface when I read that list of names, this has been written. All these names have been written on publications that they're going to be in attendance. A lot of things, you might see a guy who didn't commit to come, and then you might see a person who did commit to coming, not come. That's just kind of how this pans out in the recruiting world. One of these guys might not come. So I just wanted to preface that. That happens a lot. At the time of this recording, these guys are planning to be at the pool party. if they don't end up coming to the pool party, stuff like that can happen. But those are some names that are going to be there. And there's going to be a ton more names. You're going to see 2025 kids there, a lot of 2024 guys there. Could we see a 2025 commit? There's a lot that could play out this weekend, and I don't think any of it is negative. So like I said, folks, this is a big time recruiting weekend. I would absolutely love to see the Aggies land a couple guys. If you could land Terry, I think it could start a snowball effect into a handful of commits. And if that were to happen, folks, whoo! So I don't think it's unrealistic to say that this class could be number 6, number 5 in the nation after this weekend. Now, once again, lots of other schools are also having their big-time recruiting stuff. So you could see some other schools land some guys. But it's going to be a big weekend, folks. And I feel very confident that you're going to see somebody commit this weekend. And hopefully it is Terry Bussey, which would be absolutely electric city, folks. So pool party coming up. Hopefully, if we get some commits, I'm going to try and get some like little extra videos out this weekend to talk about. I just hate having to wait till Monday. So like if we get a commit on Saturday, I'll see if I can pump something out real quick, just a little 10-minute quick hitter, just because I hate having to wait till Monday to tell you all about these recruits. So be on the lookout for that. If something were to go out, I'll see what I can do there. But be on the lookout if we were to land somebody big for something like that to come out this weekend. 24/7 Sports, speaking of 24/7 Sports, put out a article talking about the biggest swing game for each SEC team. We're going to talk about who is the Aggies' biggest swing game and who, for an opponent, the Aggies are the biggest swing game for, coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to talk about our amazing friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Folks, I've talked about LinkedIn here. It's a great tool. I've had friends get jobs through LinkedIn. I've gotten a job through LinkedIn before in the past. It's an all-around great service that it's like social media for work. I love it. It's a good way to, make business connections to help grow a career, start a career, fresh out of college. It's an all-around great tool. If you're a business owner, you're looking to hire somebody, hire some fresh out of college kids, LinkedIn is a great place to work. One thing I love about it is there's a little badge. Those of you that are potentially hiring or seeking a job, there's a little badge that you can click that says looking for work, and it'll put it on your little profile picture so people can know immediately if you're needing a job or not. Love LinkedIn, folks. LinkedIn helps you find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, folks, let's talk a little swing game. How about it? We got a little swing game stuff to talk about here. 24/7 Sports put out an article where they listed the biggest swing game for each SEC team. Now, we're going to talk about which swing game it is for the Aggies, and there was another team whose swing game was listed as the Texas A&M game. So, the matchup with Tennessee was the swing game for the Aggies. I agree here, but I think that Texas A&M's schedule, I don't love the way it works out because you have so many difficult matchups back to back to back. So you go Bama, Arkansas, right? Or I'm sorry, you go Arkansas, then Bama, and then the Tennessee game. You get your bye week after, which is great. I think that's going to be good. You play South Carolina after the bye week. I think the bye week is good to, get healthy after this long stretch. But goodness, folks, going from Arkansas, the team that plays just rough, tough, real football. Hits hard, physical. The team that it's hard to out physical, to then playing Bama, one of the talented teams when it comes to stars and flat out talent, to then having to match up with Tennessee in Knoxville. That's a game that I think is going to be interesting. I think that if you can, I I think to have a successful season, you have to find a way to go 2-3 in that stretch. Now, hear me out, folks. Hear me out before we go crazy. I think that the Aggies should beat Arkansas. I think Arkansas is going to have a good year. I'm high on Arkansas, but I think Texas A&M should and will beat them. Neutral site game. I think the Aggies are going to win this game. I think it's in a part of the season where you've played an SEC game, you've settled into who you are, you found your identity as a football team, and you get to play them. I think they take care of business there. So basically, let's take out the Arkansas game. I think you need to have a successful season. You got to go 1-2 against Bama and Tennessee. I wish you could flip. Frankly, this is my opinion. I wish that we could take the schedule, which obviously we cannot do, but I wish you could take this schedule and flip the weeks of the Bama-Tennessee game and the home and away. I think if Texas A&M plays Tennessee at home the week before Bama, I think they win that game. I really do feel confident to say that. I think playing Bama at home, then heading to Knoxville in Neyland to play Tennessee, I don't love that, folks. I mean, I bet you, especially if the Aggies are able to beat Bama, I wouldn't be surprised if that was like a college game day type of football game. If Texas A&M, has knocked off Arkansas, Auburn, and Miami, and they're, whatever, would it be 5-1, 6-1? I could see that being a college game day kind of game. So, and we saw what happened last year in a game similar to that, where they literally carried the goalposts, the Tennessee fans did, into a river after beating Alabama. So, I don't love that atmosphere, but I think the thing about Tennessee, and we talked a little bit about them this week, but, they lost a lot of offensive linemen. You lose receivers. You lose Hooker. I know you bring back Milton, and he looked great last year during his time when Hooker went down with the ACL tear. But I think there are more question marks surrounding this Tennessee Volunteer football team than people are giving it credit for. I think that as a college football community, people are so quick to jump on the hype train. And folks, we've seen this happen with Texas A&M before in the past. So it's not like us Aggie fans are numb to this, but I think that people are quick to jump on the hype train, even at times when it might not be warranted. And the reason I kind of think that is just because, I don't know, folks. It just seems like there's question marks around this Tennessee team. I know they returned some receivers. They returned their running back room. You returned Milton, but like the defense last year through the air was pretty bad. They scored a lot, but they gave up some points. I think that this is a team, if Milton doesn't have the year, and then you talk about the backup quarterback there, Nico, true freshman 5-star. Could those guys bump heads a little bit? Could you see the fans quick to jump on Milton if he has a couple rough games to start the year? I have a weird feeling about the Tennessee season. I think they might be a little overhyped. Now, I think they're going to have a good year. Worst case scenario for them, I think they still win 8 games and go to a bowl game and go 9-4. I think that's like the worst case scenario. But I don't think they're going to compete with Georgia for the SEC East. I just don't see any world where that happens. It's a tough schedule. Being in the East, you have to play Georgia. I don't like that for them, frankly. So I think that I agree it's a swing game, but I think it's a game that I think Texas A&M can go on the road and win this game. Frankly, if this game was in College Station, I bet the Aggies would be favored. I really do. But the fact that you have to go on the road, I think the line right now is it's +8 for Texas A&M, around there last time I checked. But it's a game I don't feel great about, but I think Texas A&M can win that football game. I really do. I've always said this, if I had to pick a game the Aggies can win between Bama at home, at LSU, and at Tennessee, I'm going with at Tennessee. And I think a lot of people can agree there. So that's definitely a game I'm kind of interested to see how that pans out. It's a game that I think the Aggies can win, but it's also a game I agree with 24/7 Sports. It's definitely a swing game. And if the Aggies want to go 9-3, want to go 10-2, I think you have to win that football game. I really do. I feel like that is hence the term swing game. I think that swings your season one way or the other. You win that game, we're talking something serious this season for the Aggies. So that's going to be a fun one. And then you get your bye week after it, so you can put everything on the line that week. It's going to be a fun ball game. I cannot wait for that one in Knoxville, Tennessee. Then the swing game that for another opponent that is where Texas A&M is their swing game is Auburn. So that'll be the week 4 matchup, the SEC opener for both squads. This is a ball game. I agree here that this is a swing game for Auburn. And frankly, I think it's a little bit of a swing game for the Aggies too. I think Texas A&M wins. I think Auburn will surprise some people, though. I've had some folks tell me that, and I agree with them. But I think Auburn's going to be better than people are currently anticipating. And I think that could this be a dogfight to win that game at home against Auburn? I think it might be. And I think the biggest key to success, and this is going to sound stupid when I say it, but let me lay it out. The biggest key to success for the Aggies this season is starting the season 4-0. And you might say, well, duh, I get that. But I think beating Auburn and beating Miami, if you do that, those are two games that I think you're going to be favored in, but could be toss-up. I think Miami game, you could argue is more of a toss-up than the Auburn game, but two games that aren't going to be cakewalks. If you take care of business there, then the 9-3, 10-2, I really think comes into play. If you drop one of those games, going 9-3 or 10-2 is going to get a lot harder really fast. So I agree it's a swing game for Auburn. They have a lot to prove. They got Hugh Freeze over there now. So they got a lot to prove down in Auburn, Alabama. It's going to be interesting to see how that team pans out. But I think this is a big game, like I said, for both squads. Definitely a big game for Texas A&M. And we'll just kind of have to see. I think Texas A&M wins it. I'm not going to go out and say boat race, but I think they win it by a couple touchdowns, frankly. But it is definitely a swing game for both teams. I don't think you can lose it. I think if you lose that game, that Texas A&M, that is, if Texas A&M loses to Auburn or Miami, like I said, I think winning 9 games, winning 10 games, I almost throw it out the window. So I think both of these games we talked about, the Tennessee game and the Auburn game, I would pretty much deem must wins on this Texas A&M 2023 football schedule. Folks, you amazing listeners have sent me some mailbag questions that we are going to answer, talking about potential decommitments, talking about what's some games I'm excited about this season. So we're going to get into that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our amazing friends over at eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors with eBay Guaranteed Fit. You can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you go shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. Folks, let's do a little bit of mailbag questions here before we get ready to rock and roll on this amazing upcoming weekend. Happy Friday, folks that are listening. I hope everybody has a good day. One more day, folks. We are one day away from the weekend. I can't wait. Don't have any plans yet, but we'll figure something out. But I got an interesting question, and it's kind of, this was a Twitter direct message to the show's Twitter, at Locked On Aggies on Twitter. This was an interesting comment I got, or direct message I got, and it was a really good conversation that it kind of sparked. But it was, if you were to potentially land a Ryan Wingo, which I don't know about, but the Aggies are in it still for a lot of top 100 receivers. So let's say you were to land one of those guys. Could you see a Jalen Hornsby or a DeBron Gatling decommit? And frankly, folks, I think you could. So like what we're going to do, I want to pull this up here. I want to pull up Texas A&M's 2024 recruiting class so we can take a look at this. And I want to talk about the fact that the first thing I want to say is I don't think you lose Ernest Campbell. And the reason is I don't think you lose him. I just think what he brings to the table is different than what these two guys bring to the table. So the two guys that I think you could potentially lose, would be Jalen Hornsby and DeBron Gatling, because those guys kind of play football a little bit similar, they play more similar football to a Draylon Miller and a Cam Coleman than to a Ernest Campbell. I think Ernest Campbell's a guy not as highly ranked as some of these guys, as Cam Coleman, Draylon Miller, but I think he's going to stick around. Now, folks, I mean, wide receiver is a position you don't generally. Okay, right now you got Cam Coleman, Draylon Miller, Jalen Hornsby, DeBron Gatling, and then Ernest Campbell. So you got 5 receivers currently committed, and we could see one more, maybe. So it's like, I don't think Hornsby, a guy who at one point, I don't know where his ranking's at right now, but at one point he was sitting at like a top 400 recruit in the class. I don't think he would come into a class where he's going to be as a top 400 recruit. He's going to be the 4th best receiver in the class. I just don't know if that makes sense to him. So, I think it's an interesting question. And I don't have any intel on this. This is just like a gut feeling of one of these guys might want to find a better situation if you were to land another talented wide receiver. So that'll be interesting to see how that and if that plays out. That was just a question. I got it, and I was like, wow, that's a really good, interesting question. I'll talk about that on Mailbag this upcoming Friday. The next question, I tried to do a couple of recruiting questions since we were talking about the pool party today. The next little recruiting tidbit I was asked about, this was on a comment on one of my shows on YouTube a couple days ago, was how many O-linemen do we end up taking in this class? We're currently sitting at 3. I wouldn't be one bit surprised if Texas A&M finished this 2024 recruiting cycle with 5 or 6 offensive linemen committed, it's signed, sealed, delivered. That wouldn't surprise me, folks. I think it's a class. You're kind of sitting in a good spot with O-linemen right now to where you got some older guys, you got some middle guys, and you got some young guys. So the question is, do any of those players, do you see any of those guys? Does this class get to 5 or 6? And that's the number I like it at. I think you always want to bring in the big uglies. You want to bring in a whole bunch of them. If you bring in a bunch of those guys, I just think it leads to it takes away the chances of what happened last year happening, which is where you lose some guys, you're forced to throw in some young guys. I just don't, all in all, I don't love the thought of that. So it's like, I want you to bring in as many linemen each class as possible, just because, frankly, I think you do that and you don't run into issues of players getting banged up and missing some time and leading to your offense not moving. So I would be happy with 5 or 6 offensive linemen in this class for sure. And then the last question we're going to talk about today before we call it a day and call it a weekend, folks, is if I could go to one of the away games this year, what would it be? And it's going to sound a little cliche since we've talked about it already, but folks, I would definitely go to the Tennessee game. As an Aggie fan and a college football fan, I really do appreciate good atmospheres at games. And I think the atmosphere in Neyland, I mean, that Tennessee-Alabama game was one of the most spectacular atmospheres I've seen in a long time. Now, song Rocky Top, not a fan. I think it's catchy at times. It's catchy one time, but then is it catchy the 40th time? Heck no, especially if your team's losing. We don't love that. But then you got Tennessee. Then you have the time they were throwing stuff at Lane Kiffin. So it's like, I think it'd be a fun atmosphere. I do. I think I would enjoy that. So if I had to pick one game atmosphere-wise to go to this year, I think it'd be the Tennessee game. So, folks, that is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. Have a dang good weekend. Hopefully we all have a good weekend because the Aggies land some big-time recruits. We'll see. Here comes the pool party, folks. It's going to be a fun weekend of following some recruiting. I hope you all have an absolutely amazing weekend. Thank you so much for tuning in every day. It means the world to me that I get to do this for you all. So, and it's only made possible by you all, the listener. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Have a great weekend, and we will see you on Monday.